participating, particularly our panelists, those of you who have logged in to get answers and resources and information involving terrible economic hardship that a lot of small businesses and independent contractors and even gig workers are feeling right now. You're in the right place because we have some incredible expertise joining us by way of these panelists who I'll just briefly introduce. Mary Ann Petrillo is the CEO of West Business Development Center. Bill Kunst, is joining us from the Small Business Administration. And Bianca Bloomquist is the California Policy and Engagement Director of Small Business Majority. It is a terrific team to answer between them and Assemblymember Wood and myself. We should be able to answer any questions you have about the federal and state resources that are being made available to help get folks through a really tough patch here, keep the lights on, hopefully keep as much of their payroll intact as possible until we can get this pandemic under control. All of us are adjusting to this shelter-in-place reality. We've had to adapt our work routines and our personal lifestyles, so I hope everybody is staying safe and staying at home. But this is a great way, while we're doing that, to try to connect and get some help out, especially to the business community. So thank you for trying out this relatively new tool to many of us, the Zoom web conference. This is my first chance to do a virtual small business roundtable. And the way this is going to work is we'll try to keep everybody muted so that we don't have terrible echo effects on the web conference. And then if you want to direct questions to the main host, which is my district director, Jenny Calloway. She's sitting safely 10 feet away from me right now. And we have vested a lot of power in Jenny. She can like mute and unmute all of us today, including me. So she's loving this. But if you can use the chat feature to direct your question or comment to Jenny, she will work it into the queue for Assemblymember Wood or myself or any of our other panelists, and we will get you some answers. If we don't get to all of the questions today, I promise you that my staff will do our best to circle back. Our goal is obviously to check in and make sure we're attending to all of the needs that you might have from our respective positions. So you have our ear. Assemblymember Wood and I are at your service today, and what we're here to talk about, obviously, we've got two crises unfolding simultaneously, a public health pandemic, which is job number one. This is not so much the forum to really get into the public health aspects of this. We'll have other forums that bring medical professionals and public health experts into that conversation. But the second part of this crisis is the economic collapse that pandemic has forced upon us. And that's a big deal in every part of my district. I know how tough this is for people. I know about the actual real hardships that small and medium and even large businesses are facing right now. We really want to provide as much help as possible. Congress has taken some very significant actions already to put resources on the table. I think for the interest of time, I won't walk you through all the details of the CARES Act and other actions that Congress has taken. But if any of you are not familiar with those things and want to talk about those as we go forward, I'm happy to go into whatever level of detail that you would like. So to move us as quickly as possible into the substance and into the expertise of our panelists, I'm going to cut it off there. I'm going to invite my colleague, Assemblymember Wood, to make any opening remarks that he would like to start with, and then we will dive into your questions. So Jim Wood, my co-convener, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Congressman Huffman, for the opportunity to join you here today. Could I ask that people in the background please mute your phones? There's a lot of clanking and stuff, and it makes it hard to hear what's going on. So that would be really helpful for everyone, I think. You know, I'm honored to be here with the Congressman. A lot of my work has been focused on the medical, the health part of this pandemic, and working with my staff on obviously some of the small business issues and the business issues in general. But that's where most of my expertise is in the healthcare part of this. So I'm happy to answer those questions. But I think we'll be having more of these, and we can get into the details there. I know that certainly businesses have been crippled by this, and we want to be able to provide the resources, answer some of the questions you have. And also, as with the Congressman, if we can't answer a question today, I'm not going to attempt to snow you on something. If we don't have an answer, we're going to get you an answer, and we'll either get it to you personally, and we have a record of everyone's going to be on this call, and then we'll also post it on our Facebook page, because I believe that there'll probably be other people who have similar questions. So obviously, we live in really strange times right now, and we will get through this. I just want to say one thing from the medical perspective, and that is that we are bending this curve. The results are remarkable, quite frankly, and above the expectations that we had when we started the shelter in place. And I think it's important that people remember that we need to continue this, as painful as it is. We need to continue this activity. The worst thing you can do, speaking as a medical professional, is you may have had an infection and got a prescription of antibiotics, and after 3/4 of that you felt pretty good, and you stopped taking the antibiotics. What you did there was you risked a reinfection. And so one of the reasons we're being cautious in California is that we want to be sure that the curve has been bent enough so that we don't risk an outbreak and creation of major hotspots in counties. Our rural counties have been spared the worst of this, and we hope that continues that way. But it really is critical that we continue the shelter in place. So with that, I will turn this back over to the Congressman.
Well, thanks, Jim, and that's a great analogy. Stopping your antibiotics 3/4 of the way through sounds a lot like where we are right now, and some people are at the national level are urging us to do just that. So really appreciate you providing that context. So I think without further ado, we're going to open this up to questions, and we're going to rely heavily on the expertise of our three panelists. Let me just say that these folks that work in small business development and advising and providing bridge loans and resources to small businesses every day of the year. They're folks that sometimes Jim Wood and I don't interact with every day. And I don't want to say we take them for granted, because we would like to believe that we always value our small business community. But in a moment like this, when folks are really struggling to keep the lights on and to keep people employed and to keep the flame of our economy lit, they are center stage, and they are really good at what they do. So we're glad to have all of them with us and ready to take the first question. So
I think if the panelists introduce themselves, it might stimulate questions.
very good. So let's do this. Jenny is going to unmute the panelists one by one and let them make some opening remarks before we dive into questions. So I think we're going to start with Marianne Petrillo. Marianne, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear my audio okay?
Yes.
Do you hear my audio?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me here today to speak on behalf of small businesses. West Business Development Center has been in Mendocino County serving the small business community for over 30 years. We're very proud of the work that we are doing, and we're very excited and very happy to be helping each and every one of the businesses in our county. As both of you have made in your opening remarks, this is unprecedented times. There's no doubt that we are seeing a collapse of our small businesses all across our rural economy, and this is very, very challenging for them. Just to give you some perspective about our office, our call volume has tripled in the last 3 weeks. Our intake of clients has doubled in the last 2 weeks. We are now not only getting requests for coming on as clients and questions about loans, but the questions are much deeper and much more complex than the normal gee, I'd like to start a business, and how could you help me? So, you know, it's not only growing exponentially, but the complexity of the needs of our small businesses is growing day by day. We have advisors to help. We've staffed up. We're doing everything virtual. We are keeping all of our small businesses apprised with our COVID website that we update actually daily, depending on the news that comes out from both federal, state, and local agencies. As everyone has said, health is first and foremost, but we are really seeing a severe economic crisis, especially in our rural economies. Not only are they lacking funds, but they are also lacking the tools and skills that they need to make transitions into some of this new economy, which I'm sure will come out of the recovery phase of this. I'd like to give the other people time to introduce themselves. I'm happy to talk more about this, but thank you again for inviting me, and look forward to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Marianne. We're going to go next to Bianca Blomquist of Small Business Majority. So Bianca, the floor is yours.
Hi there. I'll keep it really brief because we have such great folks on this panel. Thank you for everyone for participating. Thank you, Congressman and Assemblyman, for arranging this. My name is Bianca Blomquist. I manage policy operations in Northern California for a nonprofit called Small Business Majority. We are a national nonprofit, but as I mentioned, I work here in California. We advocate for small business owners on the macroeconomic issues that are pretty persistent among small business owners, particularly women business owners, rural business owners of color, so primarily access to capital. Oh, I'm sorry, my video is not on. Primarily access to capital, affordable healthcare coverage, which we are working on all the time, and wealth building options. We encourage you to go to venturize.org or do a simple Google search to find your local Women's Business Center, your local SBDC, your local Veterans Technical Assistance Center. All of these organizations are paid for by your taxpayer dollars, provide free one-on-one advising for times like these. So a lot of the questions are not going to be, or a lot of the information is not cookie cutter. Every small business has a different situation. You're definitely going to want to revisit your business plan. Feel free to reach out to any member of the folks on this panel, and we're happy to walk you through this process.
All right, thank you, Bianca. We're gonna let Bill Kuntz from the Small Business Administration bat cleanup here. And Bill had a very different job 30 days ago than he does right now. He is now entrusted with pushing out billions of dollars in very short order to folks who desperately need them. Bill, we're glad you're with us.
Good morning, Congressman Huffman, and everyone else that's there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, my name's Bill Kuntz, and I'm a public information officer for the Small Business Administration, the SBA. And as the Congressman says, yes, our agency has been transformed like never before. And we're an organization that is used to dealing with large-scale disasters that happen in the blink of an eye. But let me just say that nothing like this has ever happened before. As far as a government program that's trying to deliver the much needed dollars to the small businesses that are reeling from this. So I can speak today about SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And that's the traditional loan program the SBA has always provided to small businesses that have been impacted by a disaster. But that program has been amended and changed and streamlined, and a lot of things have happened to what we do. I can't really speak about the payroll protection program, which is another component that the SBA agency is managing through local lenders. Excuse me. I'm pleased that Marianne is with us today. She's obviously probably more familiar with some of the payroll protection plan issues that are cropping up. We at SBA, we rely on our resource partners and the small business development centers, like West Business Development Center, are one of the major assets that we have to direct people to for help. We also have women's business centers, veterans business outreach centers, and SCORE chapters. SCORE being retired executives who offer their counseling to business owners for free. All of these services through these SBA resource partners is available to everyone for free. So a lot of local folks that many of you may know. So that's a teeny little thumbnail about SBA, I guess. I'm happy to be prepared to answer any questions that come along. Thanks.
Well, thanks to all of you. We're going to get to your questions now, and Jenny will be reading out the questions.
Hi, all right, the first question's from Bridget. Restaurants are not going to be reopening for a while, and we will need time to utilize our PPP loans to pay people. Is work being done to give us an extended timeline to use that money? Thank you.
Who wants to dive into that first? Mary Ann, is that you?
Well, you know, I think the question too is specifically about if federal agencies are going to extend this. I can say that right now it's a 2-year term on that loan. You know, I think what I have been seeing in the last 3 weeks is opportunities like loans of PPP or the EIDL come out, and then there's an amendment or something to address either the continuation of it or the use of the funds or the different ways to use the funds. So I don't know if down the road they will extend it longer than the 2 years, but right now it's a 2-year term for the PPP funds to be used.
Yeah, let me jump in. This is Congressman Huffman, and to the extent you're asking if more help is on the way for these programs, I think I can say with some confidence that the answer is yes. Right now, there's pretty broad consensus that we need to push more funding into the Paycheck Protection Program. We need to enhance the benefits. We need to lengthen the period of time because 8 weeks is not enough for a lot of businesses to make these tough decisions and anticipate, especially we know more hardship is coming that will extend beyond 8 weeks. So I think the safe answer is yes, but I can't tell you exactly what that's going to look like right now because there are a lot of difficult negotiations underway. And they're primarily, at least for this part of the process, focused on whether we should just push more money into the existing program or whether we should address some of the flaws that have already become apparent in the early rollout of the program. And I'm in the latter camp. I actually think that we've learned that relying too much on big banks doesn't work, that we need to police some of the abuses that we have seen. And again, big banks have been the worst offenders here, shopping these loans to their favored customers and turning away folks who were not favored customers, putting arbitrary restrictions on who's eligible and how much they can get that were not intended by Congress. Remember, this is all federal money. It's all being backed by Uncle Sam and just being pushed through lending institutions. So there's no reason that any bank should do anything like that. But they are, and we're hearing about it all the time. So I think many of us want to bring new lenders into the mix, including some grassroots community lenders so that folks aren't as dependent on you know, the tender mercies of Wells Fargo and Bank of America. I hope that answers your question. Do any of our other panelists want to speak to this, or should we move on?
This is Bianca from Small Business Majority. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add that at Small Business Majority, we are working with Congress to ensure that cash assistance is put into the hands of small business owners and considered as they roll out the 4th phase of the stimulus package. We are a nonprofit that bases all of our work on third-party independent polling and research of small business owners nationwide, and we just released a poll yesterday that shows that an overwhelming majority of small businesses say that the current situation is not enough, the federal programs are not acting quickly enough, and they need cash assistance into their hands. So the fight is not over in that regard. In regards to the federal programs, as they exist today, we are seeing a lot of community banks are stepping up at a time where the Banks of America, Wells Fargo, are not doing their part. They are, as the Congressman said, favoring folks that have credit accounts open with them. They have a vested interest in making sure that those folks get paid. But community banks are really stepping up right now. So we are still encouraging small business owners to call the community banks in their area, even if they don't have a banking relationship with them, and see what options might be available to them there.
Yeah. Terrific. I'm going to mute and ask Jenny to go to the next question.
Okay, Ron Moorhead is talking about the same topic. Our small businesses are in need of assistance now. They're asking why it's taking so long for help. The system seems to be long jammed. How can we get that help sooner?
One of the things.
SBA, Bill, do you want to jump in on this?
I'll be glad to. Well, as I said earlier, I'm part of SBA's disaster office. We have an Office of Disaster Assistance, and that's the office that handles what I think Mary Ann's referred to as the EIDL loan, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And that's a completely separate program from the Payroll Protection Plan. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan part of SBA, these are loans that come directly from the government. So you're getting a direct deposit to your account from the SBA's money. And it's not like going through the local lender with the Payroll Protection Plan. The SBA's disaster program with the economic injury loans has received several million loan applications in the last 4 weeks. A couple weeks ago, SBA instituted a brand new loan processing software system, our online application, and it's a streamlined process. We've completely eliminated having to provide any supporting financial documents when you apply online, as before you had to do that. We don't ask you to sign a release that we go to the IRS and get a copy of your tax returns. Nothing. When you apply for these new, for this loan through this new processing system, your loan application can be completed in 10 or 20 minutes, and you don't have to provide anything more. And then SBA will make a decision on your loan request based entirely upon what you've self-certified, in essence, what you've told SBA in the application process. So to answer the question, if I've applied recently for this SBA disaster loan, when might I see some money? The answer is some loans have been approved, some dollars are going out, some direct deposits are being made, but there are millions of loan applications to be processed. And so SBA can't tell me, and I can't tell you, how long to expect before you, A, hear back from the SBA, or B, see a dollar in your account. And I'll mention one other aspect of these disaster loans, and that is you're able to request at application an advance on the disaster loan that you're applying for. And that advance would be $1,000 per employee, and that would include the owner, up to 10 employees or a total of $10,000. So when you apply for the loan, you're in line to receive up to $10,000, again, $1,000 per employee in your business. And that would be directly deposited immediately to your account as soon as SBA can possibly process that. Here's the interesting thing that some folks don't know. As you receive this advance, up to $10,000 in your account, meanwhile, SBA is still processing your loan request. There may come a moment in the days to come when SBA says, well, we can't approve your loan, for instance, because you committed a felony, let's say. There are a lot of reasons that we might turn down a loan request. The interesting thing that's brand new is the advance you got up front, you can keep that money and you don't have to pay it back, even though ultimately your full loan amount was declined by the SBA. So we are seeing some folks. I've talked to a lady yesterday who got a $10,000 deposit to her account from SBA, and she still hasn't heard back from SBA. So we have a tremendous backlog of communications to make. An email, as I understand it, is supposed to go to you when your loan is approved. But it turns out in the real world that some people are seeing the money in their account before they hear anything from SBA. So we have no idea at the field level what to tell people to expect. Some folks are already hearing or seeing money in their accounts and are hearing from SBA when they've applied, but other folks have not heard anything, and it's just it's a frustrating time to wait. I know that, and the only thing I can say on behalf of our agency is we're doing the best we can and processing the loans as fast as we can. So I hope that answer helps.
So Bill, thanks for that. I think the question is generally about how can these various streams of money move faster, given the urgency. And certainly you've spoken to the EIDL or the disaster loan, which is one type of funding. There are also grants, emergency grants that Congress authorized through the SBA. And I believe I've seen that is supposed to move within 3 days. But we are hearing about folks not getting it in that time frame. So do you have anything you can say specifically to those emergency $10,000 up to $10,000 grants? And then I'm going to turn to Bianca and Marianne as well, because there are some bridge financing options even at the local level I'm hearing about that can help you navigate the cash flow while you wait for this SBA funding. In Humboldt County, yesterday we had a little forum, and the Humboldt Area Foundation, for example, is working with some small business entities up there to provide emergency loans. You know, they've donated, I think, $500,000 to provide this kind of bridge financing, just so folks can wait on their SBA money. But Bill, the grants, and then I'll ask Bianca and Marianne about the other.
Congressman Huffman, thank you. The fact is that at higher levels of government, there have been announcements made that SBA will be putting this advance money, what the Congressman referred to as a grant, up to $10,000, be putting that money in your hands within 3 days. That has been announced at high levels of the government. The reality is it's not possible to do that across the board. And
so we overpromised for you. Is that what you're telling us?
Well, the reality is if we have millions of loans in process, it just takes a certain amount of time for that process to be gone through. I can't offer anything other than to say the SBA is doing the best it can as fast as it can.
All right. Let's go to Marianne and Bianca on the bridge financing resources that might be available while folks are waiting.
Could I just jump
Sure.
in? Marianne would be best to answer anything about local bridge financing, but I just wanted to add on the SBA side of things with Paycheck Protection Program. So the SBA is working overtime to approve lenders to become 7A lenders that were not approved before. Local banks, in addition to nonprofit agencies, we had a webinar yesterday with 2 responsible lenders. Responsible is the key word here. There are a lot of irresponsible operators happening right now, but Lendistry, Funding Circle have opened up their Paycheck Protection Program online processes. So I encourage folks to head to Lendistry or Funding Circle if they don't have relationships with community banks, or if for whatever reason that is not an option for them. Some statistics, even though it might not feel that way, and loans approved nationwide for the EIDL, I think, are like 1.035 million. $247 billion gross dollars nationwide. In California, there have been 54,922 loans and $20 billion approved in the state of California. So it is happening. I know that waiting is very difficult, but people are tackling this issue from all different angles.
I'm going to take a little bit of different tact on this because I am understanding, if you're following any of the chats and comments that are happening in the chat box, you'll see what the most difficult challenge is for business owners. You have to understand that they are trying to plan their life. Their livelihood got shut off in a matter of hours, completely turned off. And they are very resourceful people, and they know how to do their business. They know how to run their business. They know what they need to do. but without information about when they can see money coming in, they can't do the planning that they need to do. And so I think, you know, and I appreciate greatly, and, you know, Bill, absolutely, I mean, I've been watching it step by step, hour by hour, the improvements being made across the board, you know, on the federal and state side in terms of, you know, getting more information, getting more help, getting more lenders on board. That's all happening, and that's great. But the reality is, especially in, you know, communities like ours, where people don't have large cushions or foundations, financial foundations to support or bolster them for 6 or 8 months, every day means another day that you may not be able to come back from this. And I think the frustration happens for small businesses when they don't know how to plan their future. And that's the kinds of questions that we're being asked. One of the reasons why our advisors spend a lot of time, not only on getting the loans, applying for the loans, and making sure they're doing the right paperwork for the loans, but managing the cash that they have, whatever little they have to put together, being very strategic on managing that cash outflow. Again, you can only do that only as good as you know when some of that money might come into your, you know, into your work. So I think this is a really important point that sometimes gets lost in the conversations about helping small businesses, is that they're resourceful and they can do the job, but they need the information just as quickly. I mean, they would rather be told that you're not going to get a paycheck or you're not going to get money for 3 months, not until June 15th, and know that they can plan for that, than to be in a wondering state as to what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after.
Yeah.
I just want to emphasize that as a really
I had a
Did anyone
question
else
for
wanna jump
Bill,
in?
if it's okay, Congressman.
Please.
Excuse me, Bill. I think everybody appreciates the EIDL loan application process is now streamlined, but there were people, at least I know of one, who actually filled out the laborious work to do the original application, only to find out that the system kicked her application out after you guys streamlined the system. So was that a system-wide issue? And so if there are other folks out there who have applied for this loan under the old system, were they kicked out as well and have to go through the new process? Because sadly, she was told after she went through the new process that she now has to go to the end of the line. And I think fundamentally that's pretty unfair for someone who waded through the longer, more difficult application to fill out.
This is Bill. Thank you for that question, Sullivan. The situation you describe is correct. When in the last 2 weeks of March, when the flood of applications started to pour into SBA's heritage loan processing system, which all of us know very well, our system was overwhelmed. That last week in March, the system crashed. We told a lot of applicants to download paper copies of the old application form, fill it out, and either upload it into a special mailbox on our website, or email it to us, or put it in the U.S. mail to us. That happened for a few days, and then the SBA implemented a brand new outside vendor loan processing system, and that's what we have now, what you and I have just described as the streamlined system. A lot of the folks that applied through the old system went through all those hoops and completed all those forms and uploaded all those extra support documents. They were told you have to go and reapply in the new system. Here's the good news. I'm told that all of the existing loan applicants who have been moved into the new processing system their new loans are being scheduled, what's the word, put in process, prioritized based on when they applied with their old, now extinct loan processing system. So if you applied once and had to go apply again, you're still at the same place in line in the new system as you would have been in the old system. So that's some real good news that I've just learned in the last week. But yes, as you say, and this is the reality that we're faced with. I don't want to say that what the SBA as an agency is going through is anything like the people that are dying in New York City of the virus, but we're sort of similar in that the medical system in New York City is being has been overwhelmed by the crush of patients, and people are being treated in lobbies, not in ICU rooms. And so there are all these things that the medical profession has had to do to adjust to the reality at hand. And like that, but certainly not on that scale of, I mean, we're not talking about lives, but the SBA has been in the same situation. So knowing what SBA has done from my perspective, I'm kind of proud that we've adapted as quickly as we have, and we're getting faster and faster every day, and we're approving hundreds of thousands of loans faster and faster. That's all good. But if I'm a business owner and I haven't heard from anybody at SBA, or I applied and then I reapplied and I don't even know what's happening, yes, that's extremely frustrating. And I can well imagine, I've been a small business owner myself in my past. It's a frightening time. And as I think Mary Ann was saying, sure, that people would need to know what to expect that is going to happen in terms of timing. And believe me, everyone at SBA's field offices, like myself, we've been clamoring for more information. Tell us what to expect. What can we tell the public since this all began a month ago? The fact is that, and this is me guessing this, because the SBA is making these rapid changes and adapting and improving, it's very fluid to say, here's what to expect, because it's changing daily. And we've had some things that have been obstacles that we had to overcome. So things get better. We have an obstacle, slow down. It gets better, it gets fixed.
Thanks for that. I want to keep us moving. We appreciate it. We're overwhelmed, and Jenny has a question now that'll kind of probably go to Assembly Member Wood about another overwhelmed agency, EDD, trying to push out unemployment benefits that have been greatly expanded, that are being sought at levels we have never seen before. But before I hand it back to her, I'm seeing some comments and questions. Just want to touch real quickly. Some folks are asking about the money running out in the Paycheck Protection Program and EIDL. You hear rumors about that. The money has not run out, folks. Congress appropriated an awful lot of money. The demand on these programs is high, and some of the lenders are being overwhelmed and are hitting the pause button, but it's not a function of the money running out. It's really more a function of the capacity of the various lenders. Another question is back to my comment about the negotiations right now over the next wave of legislation, about whether I'm trying to create new programs. And I certainly didn't mean to imply that. What we're really talking about is whether you just push more money into the existing Paycheck Protection Program without making improvements as we go, or whether we try to tighten it up. It's not a new program. It's about whether we improve the program as we go. And I think we have enough data from this first round that we can make some improvements as we go. So Jenny, why don't you fire off that next question?
Okay, Assemblymember Wood, a number of people are making their plans trying to avoid putting people on unemployment by getting the PPP, and they're in that middle lane. And there are a lot of people asking when the money will be available for the new categories of eligible workers, like the independent contractors and the gig workers. We know that some funds are flowing, but can you give us a sense of timelines on how unemployment will be reaching these new categories?
I don't really have, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really have a good timeline. I've been told that that regardless of what your status might be, that you should go ahead and actually apply as quickly as you can. I think you need to bear in mind that for the month of March, we saw more unemployment claims in March than we saw for the entire year in 2019. And so, you know, going back to 2008, when EDD was sort of downsized over time, they have remained at a very at a much lower staffing level than they have been, because unemployment has been so low. So they are incredibly overwhelmed by the number of applications. And you know, once people are get the unemployment, it will be retroactive to the appropriate time. But it is taking time. They are staffing up. They are going to continue to you know, extend their hours. So it's been really frustrating, and I appreciate that. And all I know is that they're working as quickly as they can. The labor secretary was on the phone yesterday with us, members of the legislature, and they are working. And so I just encourage people to be patient. I will say this: if you are used to if you're used to taking a lot of your calls, and I imagine a lot of them have been forwarded to your business calls, have been forwarded to your personal cells, if you see an unknown number there, you might want to answer that one. Unknown numbers often come from the state. I know when my staff calls me, it's usually on an unknown number. So that may be the EDD calling you, or some other agency. So I would encourage you to either change your settings on your phone or answer those calls. I do want to say I have to jump off the call in about 15 minutes because of a call with all the county behavioral health departments leaders, as we've got huge challenges with the behavioral health in California, but I'll stay on as long as I possibly can. And whoever asked the question, I will strive to get you an answer. One of my staff members is on the phone as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah, the labor secretary was on a call with our California delegation a couple days ago and told us that in the first few weeks of these expanded unemployment benefits, they had more claims than they had in the entire year of 2019. So it gives you an idea of the kind of pressure they're under, but they're hiring like mad. The problem is that they were staffed very low because we had record low unemployment. And all of a sudden this crisis hits and we have record high unemployment. So we're playing catch up. I'm seeing a lot of questions come in about whether if employees are on unemployment, can that business still participate in the Paycheck Protection Program, and how does that work? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask Mary Ann or one of our other panelists if they want to provide a ground level technical answer to that.
Am I still on mute? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Always a tricky question, that is, because it does change. We are asked that a lot, and yes, you can still apply for the PPP loan. Bianca, you may have more updated information on this, but that was a problem for a significant portion of our small businesses, which is when this first happened, they immediately went to laying off folks, and now these new loans and these new opportunities. So there is a way to make that work and to get the loans and to give the information for the amount of payroll that you had at the highest point between, I think it's 2019 and 2020. There's dates that are in there, and you submit that, and that's what you get. Your loan is based on. So, but again, Bianca, you may have even more updated information, but that's the current information that we have.
Sure. Yeah. So the way we kind of help small business owners understand, what if I already laid off my workers, which many small business owners have. So the Paycheck Protection Program loan amount, remember this is the loan through your local banks, likely, not directly through the SBA. That's your EIDL loan. Your PPP loan is determined by 2.5 times your payroll. So essentially 2.5 months of your payroll averaged out from the last year. The eligible expenses include what you pay to employees through June 30th. So some of the folks in the chat are asking about an extension of the June 30th timeline. In other words, by June 30th, you will return to your lender, whomever had processed the 7A or the Paycheck Protection Program application, and submit receipts or whatever to show the eligible expenses that you've spent between whenever the loan is approved and June 30th. The idea and the spirit of the legislation, remember, is to keep your doors open and to keep your employees paid. So it's a little bit hazy as to what level folks are expected to rehire to staff their business. Of course, folks are not sure what the economy is going to look like in June 30th. But the idea is if you as a business owner have in good faith attempted to restore your staff levels, it doesn't have to be the same person, but the staff level, and restore the wages as best as to your ability, the idea then is that your loan, that portion of the loan will be forgiven. Is that helpful?
And then from the employee side, if you choose to take that loan and restore your payroll so that it's forgivable, the employee at that point has to have unemployment benefits terminated, right? You can't double dip. Do you want to speak to how that works?
Yeah, and I mean, and this gets a little bit tricky because we still are waiting for guidance on EDD on how the Paycheck Protection Program and unemployment is supposed to work. I know that someone asked about work share program as well. So essentially, the double dipping is important. What that means is that you can't get help twice, or you can't use federal state dollars twice. So if you are being paid by your employer, you're not unemployed. So you can't be collecting unemployment benefits as an employee and then also be employed with your employer. There are options for what's called partial unemployment. That's a little bit different in addition to work share programs. But you as an employee, if I'm talking to employees of small business owners, don't really need to worry about that. That's something the employer can figure out what is best for their business with folks like Mary Ann.
Terrific.
Yeah, I would say one thing that, as you can see by the questions, every business is slightly different. There's no cookie cutter answer. And so I just want to, again, say that one of the things that's beneficial about being both an SBDC as well as a Women's Business Center is we are constantly getting information from SBDC and from SBA and trained as things change. I think what you're going to see happen is that once the initial push of getting these loans is behind us, the next push of information is going to be on how to pay back these loans and what is the paperwork that's needed and things like that. We will be trained on that. They will explain to us how to do things like that so that we can then share that information with small businesses. So it's a cycle of learning. We're all learning it, but our advisors, whether it's the ones that come straight from West, or we have SBDC and other Women Business Center advisors that are available when the time comes.
Okay, I think Jenny has a new question, but before we do that, I'm seeing some comments about independent contractors and self-employed folks having trouble getting unemployment benefits, being told or assuming they're not eligible because they didn't used to be. You are eligible for these new expanded federal benefits. So if you're having trouble there, Assemblymember Wood and his team and the folks at EDD are probably where you want to turn. But you have 13 weeks of new enhanced unemployment eligibility, even if you are a gig worker and self-employed, sole proprietor, et cetera. It's a new type of benefit. Yeah.
Okay, a new topic here is about property mortgage protection. A couple of people have asked about mortgage protection for people who have loans backed by Freddie Mac. And maybe this is something that Bianca and Mary Ann can comment on.
What's the question?
They're interested to know if there are resources for business property mortgage protection. The loan servicer has not been forthcoming with assistance, and my loan in particular is backed by Freddie Mac.
in the CARES Act, Congress did, and administratively, I'm told as well, there is mortgage foreclosure relief in place right now. I am not familiar with the mechanics of how that works, but maybe Mary Ann or Bianca, you know a little more about that.
Mary Ann, feel free to jump in because but I know that there are a couple different things. So there are the moratorium on evictions for certain FHA-backed mortgages. These moratoriums do differ though between residential and commercial, so it's important to keep that in mind. A simple Google search of your exact city to find out what your city is doing for you in that regard. But you know, mortgage is ineligible item for forgiveness under the Paycheck Protection Program, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Mary Ann?
That's correct. That is correct. And I don't have that much information on that particular one. You know, if you frame the question for me, Jenny, I'm happy to see if I can find out more, and then we put it on our website.
Yeah, and I'll just suggest if you want to go to my website, Rep Huffman, or I'm sorry, it's huffman.house.gov. We've got a resource kit there that includes all kinds of frequently asked questions and materials that we've received from HUD and other agencies. So that might be a good place to start to see if you want more details on how the mortgage foreclosure relief for federally backed properties works.
I'd just like to add something here, and I think it's important that people realize that to simply stop paying your mortgages or stop paying your rents, I think is a really bad idea. You're going to have to at some point prove that you were affected by this, and if you weren't, you run the risk of slipping into those eviction processes or foreclosure processes that are normally out there. So you're going to have to prove that you were affected by this to get any of the protections that are available to you. So and I know some of that is evolving, but you got to be really careful with that. And last thing we want is someone to think they don't have to pay something, and they actually do.
So Assemblymember Wood, Tammy is asking, she's had to furlough her employees, and she wants to know if there's information as how she can keep her health insurance active. She's been told they need to apply for COBRA, which is more expensive, while employees have very decreased levels of income. Is there any federal state help on the issue?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer for that, and that's the first time I've come up with had that question. So I apologize for not having that. We will get back to you on that. I know that people who, if you had a Cover California plan and have run into difficulties, I know you can reach out to Cover California and get some assistance that way. And I know that there has been some talk about delay, giving people more time to pay premiums. But once again, I would be careful with that until you have a really good solid answer. And that's a question I don't have an answer to, but we will get it for you.
Yep, that's a good question, and I'll try to find out if there are enhanced COBRA benefits or anything else at the federal side. I think we've reached the end of our advertised time together. I want to give our Assemblymember Wood and our panelists a chance to offer any closing pieces of advice or thoughts that they might have. Jim, you want to start?
I just want to say thank you. Please feel our offices are up and running, so you can call our office in Ukiah if you have questions. I will tell you that the challenge for us has been that working remotely like this is difficult. So a question that might have taken us 15 minutes to get an answer to might take quite a bit longer now because we're struggling to reach out to the right resources. So, but our office is up and running. We're not physically there. Occasionally, I think people pop in, but all the calls are being forwarded, and we are there to help. And we recognize these are really difficult questions, and the complexity of the questions and the challenges that you're facing are unlike anything we've seen before. So we want to do everything we can to help, and I encourage you to reach out to our office right there in Ukiah.
Terrific. Well, thanks so much for partnering with me on this.
Thank you.
Why don't we go in reverse order with our panel? Bill Kuntz from SBA, any closing thoughts?
Thank you. One thing I did think of is that regarding the question about mortgage payments using the payroll protection plan, we were instructed, and I'm not a spokesman for that program, but we were instructed that for the payroll protection loan to be forgivable, 75% of the money that you borrow has to be used for payroll, and the other 25% can be for non-payroll purposes, and one of those purposes that is eligible is for a mortgage payment. So in some cases, I think that's money you could use toward a mortgage payment. And then my closing comment is thanks for allowing me to be here today. If you've got questions about SBA's economic injury disaster loan, you can call us at 1-800-659-2955. And you can also email us at disaster customer service, all one word, disaster customer service at sba.gov. Thanks for the time today, Congressman.
That's great. You answered in advance a question that had just come in about how do we contact our panelists. So that covers SBA. Bianca, let's go to you next.
Sure. Again, I'll keep it brief. Thank you again for making this possible. It shows tremendous leadership on your behalf. And to the small business owners out there, the fight is not over to get cash assistance into the hands of small business owners. But frankly, the media does not care what I have to say. Policymakers are less interested in what I have to say. They want to hear from you as a small business owner. So I am interested in hearing your stories, how this has been, and also, you know, be careful of predatory lenders. If anyone is asking for any fees upfront to process these loans, I mentioned, you know, the billions of dollars that have already gone out without brokers. No need to pay a broker unless you want. It is a free country, but just if they are offering to do that, you know, just keep your eyes peeled. There's a lot of predatory lenders out there right now, and thanks again for making this possible.
Bianca, thank you for making that point about brokers. I had a small business last week that was when Wells Fargo had reached its cap before it got a waiver from the Fed to keep lending. This person was being told, car dealership was being told he had to go through brokers to get into the Paycheck Protection Program, and that's just not true. Thankfully, we were able to get him connected to a lender, and he's now in the program. But somebody was going to take a cut, and we just hate to see those kind of predatory practices. So thanks for underscoring it. Marianne, you get to hit cleanup for us.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again to everybody who is on this panel and all the small businesses that participated in it. I think this is an important first step to have these kind of open conversations. In my closing remarks, I will tell the small business owners who are on the call that we will be sending out a very important economic impact survey. I know surveys are sometimes onerous, but you know, if you are interested in grants and you want our county to apply for grants, they need to have data, and that is going to become sort of so important in the months ahead. So when these surveys come out, official county surveys, please, please, please make it a point to respond to them, because they need the data in order to apply for the grants that folks like Congressman Huffman are fighting for and Assemblyman Wood are fighting for. We need that data. Secondly, buy local. We are already launched our first pilot of Open for Business so that you all could find others, store owners, shop owners, retail, hospitality, every aspect of business. We're putting a new site up. We want people to know that there are businesses that are still doing commerce in Mendocino County, and we hope to make that site grow and become stronger, because at the end of the day, we have to help each other through this very difficult and challenging time. And please remember, WES services are always free. So we will never be charging anybody for this advice. We ask you to sign up, so this way we have you as a client, but our services are free. And I'm glad, Bianca, that you mentioned that, because that is a shame when people, you know, have this issue with predatory lending and advising that isn't quite accurate. So go to our website. We have a COVID website. It has all the information and we update it daily. So thank you, Congressman Huffman, for hosting this and inviting all of us here today.
Well, thank you, Marianne. Let me just close by saying that I think a number of the questions we've gotten would benefit from, in addition to the resources you've just heard, going to my website. If you just go to huffman.house.gov and check out that resource kit for the COVID-19 crisis, there is a ton of information we have put there, including contact information, including ways to get very technical answers. And so I hope between that and everything else you've heard from our terrific panelists and Assemblymember Wood, we've given you some support and some valuable resources here today. Hang in there, everybody. Stay home, stay safe. We're going to get through this, and all of us want to be here to help you keep the lights on and keep your employees working so we can come out of this strong. Thanks very much. We're going to log off now.
Thank you.